Good afternoon, students. I hope you are able to hear me. Let me just confirm. Let me visit my YouTube handle and see if you're able to hear me. Great. I have got confirmation of the fact that you're able to hear me. I was actually going through a joke in one of the, one of the forwards I received of how three of the most asked questions at this stage during this lockdown. One is when is going to end the entire pandemic. The second is am I audible? And the third one is am I visible? So it's actually something in practical life. I'm always asking, am I audible and am I visible? So good to see that. So let's just start with our session. Today it's my session is on current affairs, January current affairs. So I'm gonna look at why am I doing January is something a lot of people might ask because it's many months back. Why am I not doing immediate current stuff? I will be doing immediate stuff as well. As you are probably aware, I had discussed in my previous class how I will be starting a daily newspaper session. So every day we are going to do the summary of what is there in the newspaper. So that's something that's going to happen every day. No questions asked, but almost every day. Some days might miss out, but I'll make it up with on another day. The other thing which which we need to do understand is for any entrance exam, questions will be asked for the last 12 months. Anything which is important in that calendar year becomes important for you. So we don't start preparing from November. The November is when you have your exams which have GK like IFT, MAT, CMAT, ZAT, etc. All these exams do have GK. Snap used to have last year, they dropped it. I don't know what they're gonna do this year. So in November these exams start. So it's not that we do GK of that month. We have to do for the last at least 9-10 months. So this calendar year, January onwards, becomes relevant for you guys. So welcome all of you to Unacademy, and that's the idea. It's not a typical academy. It's one with a difference. It's a different platform which connects the top educators from all over the country. And we have been among the leaders when it comes to engineering, medical, IAS preparation. But now, of course, we are also coming up in management, trying to create some of the finest MBAs in this country. So on that note, let's just crack these management exams. They're expected to be in November. They could be delayed due to the pandemic and the lockdowns, but at this point, we have to assume that we must finish our studies by, maybe before start of Diwali, ideally, because then, of course, the festive mood kicks in. As I said, it's the largest learning platform in the country. So you can actually get subscription with different means. So I'll also be taking you through the subscription models. Okay, this is my background, Aritro Dasgupta. I have been a trainer for the last decade, 10 years as experience. I'm an MBA from Indian Institute of Forest Management, which is the finest institute for forest and environment in all of Asia. And ranked number 8th by the NIRF among the B schools in the country. I've also got 10 years as work experience in teaching, training, strategy consulting. So I have various clients in lifestyle. I'm a food blogger, so I'm a social influencer in that sense. Zomato level 12. There are 13 levels. I'm on level 12. So I have some clients whom I advise on their business potential. Sit on some of the boards as well. Apart from this, I do content writing. That's pretty much among my areas. Content writing, I've also done a bit of executive recruitment, which is recruitment for the top levels. For example, the vice chancellor of a university in Nigeria was sourced by myself. Content writing means I write for different publications, so such as Business World and Careers 360. That's two of the leading ones in India, publications I've written for. Also, academic journal, Geography and You, and also US based trade magazine called Fine Chemicals Review. So got international exposure in the UAE and USA, and of course in Nigeria, as I mentioned. Some of the toppers from different exams have been my students from CAT, CLAT, DOJAT, etc. So I hope to have toppers very soon from the online space as well. Most of these toppers, of course, from the offline space, but I'm really hoping that soon it will change, and I'll also be producing toppers from the online space. Right. So on that note, begin with the next one. These are some of the biggest advantages we get with the Unacademy module. You have classes which will be held daily. There are live tests and quizzes. You have a structured course handled from the head office. The pedagogy has been designed there itself, and you get unlimited access. The best part is you can access these classes anytime on a laptop, on a tablet, on your phones. You're traveling on the metro, traveling on the bus, you can just scroll through and listen to lectures. It becomes almost like a podcast for you guys in that sense. So although my session is live, you can actually catch the recorded sessions, archives they are part of. So this is the channel which I am part of. Let's Crack Management Exams. So there we have different faculty members, and you can go through different sessions that we have been taking. So best part is you get unlimited access. It's like the Netflix of education world. So once you have taken a certain subscription under Netflix, you can go through unlimited movies, shows, in number of times you want, recordings, whatever. Similarly here, you get unlimited sessions, unlike an offline, traditional offline session where once you're part of the class, that's it. You can interact, of course, with the faculty, but here you can see that same lecture again and again. In case you have doubts, you can go back and access that part. Okay, so these are some of the top educators in the country. Mr. Ravi Prakash, Mr. Praveen Tyagi, Shabana Samir, Bharat Gupta, as you can see, has a lot of experience and followers, and also Abhilasha, she's the verbal trainer. Of course, all of them historically from quants, reasoning, and verbal background, because these have been the most important components of the CAT coaching. And I will be taking general knowledge. So it's a greater challenge, I feel, for me, far greater challenge, because students aspiring for CAT do not really take GK that seriously in the first few months. But I really hope to change that. And you need to read the newspapers on a regular basis. That's something I speak of in every class of mine. These are some of the top faculty we have. We have different batches. I can come back and show you these slides again. I want to get into the main course content. Also, please understand that besides, of course, a wonderful schedule, there's no language barrier. Our classes are available in Hindi, in Malayalam, Tamil, Bengali, basically a total of 16 languages, I mean, including English. So, English proficiency in English alone is not a differentiator. You can learn anytime, anywhere. If you're working till late, you come back, you can't attend classes, but at least our sessions you can watch at any time. We'll be taking constant tests as well, live poll. This facility is easier on the Unacademy app that we have. I can ask you many questions there. I can ask you quizzes. You can get your doubts cleared and interact with the educator. Class material, class notes, you can always get as PDFs. Today's class has quite detailed notes for the month of January, so do go through that in detail. And of course, you get reports and analysis. Where do you stand? What is your percentile? And the best part is you're not competing against 30 people in your batch. You're competing against thousands, perhaps tens of thousands all over the country, eventually maybe a few lakhs, who knows. 2.5 lakhs is the ballpark figure of the number of students who do go for the real CAT. So we at Unacademy hope to see those reach those numbers pretty soon. Out of those 2.5 lakhs, many are non-serious aspirants. They would just be there, but not really seriously attempting it. If I take serious people who are seriously attempting, it's about 2 lakhs, and we hope to have similar numbers very soon, so that your mocks at Unacademy are reflective of the real world, which anyway they are largely giving you an idea, not just in your city and in your locality, but you get to compete against the entire country. So that's the advantage of this platform. This is the subscription module. I'll come back once I'm done with my teaching. I can come back and show this again to you. This is my code AD09. So just follow this one. If you are subscribing to this class after seeing this session, you can always go with this AD09. There's also these are the subscriptions. I would always recommend you go for the full 24-month thing because you can see the value for money, bang per buck, as we often say. The number of bullets per shot is the highest in the 24-month because a lot of students go for repeats, because uh, you can get into a better college. Also, this takes care of the personality development, GDPI, VAT, that entire period. So that is the crux. Now I'm coming to the meat of today's class, which is January current affairs. Just give me a moment. Right. So as I said, this is the subscription model which you can go through. Let me just check my voice once again, uh, how good it is, so that I can continue with it. Perfect. I'm pretty satisfied with the voice that I'm able to hear. So that's great. I can start with the content. So I repeat again, are we starting from January? Because that's pretty. I'll be taking three classes overall for January because lots of topics are there, and from every topic I'll be expanding as well. So keep taking notes, whatever you can. Of course, you can always get records of this session, but if you can, while you are live watching, live does not mean live at this point, but whenever you're watching first time, keep taking in the notes because that will always add value to your session. So, the first topic that we're going to work out in January current affairs is about a very important new post which has been appointed, which is the Chief of Defense Staff in India, the first Chief of Defense Staff. Have you heard of his name? His name is General Bipin Rawat. So, General Bipin Rawat used to be the head of the Indian Army. The general is a tag which comes to the highest appointed army officers. So until recently, until this appointment, the structure of the Indian armed forces was that on top you had the president. President is de facto the head of all the armed forces, and of course you had the prime minister, who in reality in India we often say that de jure head or the nominal head of the country is the president, but the actual real executive head the country is the prime minister because he or she is an elected head of the country. So the point remains that army, air force, and navy, all of them used to report to the prime minister. But now the present government, the Modi government, the second Modi government, has decided to slightly change the system. This is in line with how the US military works. So we now have a chief of defense staff who will coordinate between the three bodies, so that will reduce confusion. There could be possibility of a war in the future. I don't know if you've seen the movie Border. you know Border is an often mocked movie, but it's a good movie, I think, in many ways. We've all seen it in the mid 90s, all those who grew up back then. So there's this very poignant scene, and not one, I would say a number of scenes where Jackie Shroff, he's one of the two senior guys of the Air Force. Sunny Deol, of course, the heartbeat of the movie, he's from the army. So Sunny Deol and Jackie Shroff, they engage in a lot of banter on which is more important for the country. Is it the army or the Air Force? Sunny Deol speaks on behalf of the army, Jackie Shroff on behalf of the Air Force. This is friendly banter. But this friendly banter points towards the things that a lot of these bodies can have competition. We've seen this in US, the very famous example of 9/11, when the Twin Towers were destroyed in New York City. How different bodies did have information, but they were not able to collate their information together in one platform. And that is what should be avoided now. So we now have a chief of defense staff who will be a coordinator in between. Is General Bipin Rawat senior to the Army head, Air Force head, and Navy head? Not at all. That could be in the future, but right now they are not reporting to him. So there's a difference between reporting and coordinating. My mistake. General Bipin Rawat is a four-star general, and the others are also, the respective heads are also of the same level. So they are not reporting to him, but they are coordinating with him. As of now, that's the idea. In US, it's different. US has five armed forces wings: Army, Air Force, Navy. They have Marines, which is really big. Marines includes those who fight both on water and on land. So basically, make landfall from the water and where they commence their fights. They also have now a fifth body. There was a recent movie which series, I believe, which released on Netflix called was that Space Force. So they actually have a Space Force now, the first dedicated space fighting agency, mainly an information collection source. So uh, under all five of them, they're all of these five together are coordinated by the chief of staff, chief of military staff, who then reports to the president. In US, the president is directly elected, as you are all aware of. So that's the thing with General Bipin Rawat. So as of now, it's a coordinating body, but later on, things could change. Now, the heads of the armed forces. Can you guys please tell me head of the army? Let me see how many are live. So if you can just tell me who are the heads of army, air force, and navy. I'm going to give you some time, even if you're not watching this live. Wherever you are watching, I want you guys to write it down somewhere, think over it. Um, can somebody tell me who is the head of the Indian Army? Um, Actually, Bipin Rawat was the head of the army, but since he took up this post, now we have a different army head. A recent appointment. Air Force and Navy as well have had relatively recent appointments. All of them in the last 18 months, none before that. So, okay. Just pause my session and write down the names. And this is the names basically. Please have a look. Army is headed by General Manoj Narawane. Navy by Admiral Karanbir Singh. So these are actually designations you must see. Army head is called General. Naval head is called the Admiral, and the Air Force head is called the Air Chief Marshal, whose name right now is Rakesh Kumar Singh Bhadoria. So these are the top guys of the armed forces. We also have paramilitary. Paramilitary is controlled by the Home Ministry, not by the defense ministry. So we'll talk about paramilitary some other day. But right now, since we were discussing this topic, so I'm not doing this current affairs topic wise. I'm basically doing the current affairs on the basis of um, different news items. So after a news on army, there might be some news on some power plant being started, or some election in some country, or some new business deal. So do not be confused by that. That's the idea of a current affairs class. You have different components one after another. Okay, so this is something which the Odisha government has started. They've abolished what is called the solvency certificate. They're now using a 5 T's framework. You can write down these points. What are the 5 T's framework? It involves teamwork, technology, transparency, and time leading to transformation. So, any idea who is the Chief Minister of Odisha? Please tell me who is the Chief Minister of Odisha, and also tell me which party he belongs to. This should be one of your first homework, because you need to know the Chief Ministers of all the Indian states. Make a list, prepare a list of all the Chief Ministers. You may not remember all the names, that's perfectly all right. We have a total of 31 CMs right now in India, supposed to have 31, because we have 28 states. Now, the Jammu and Kashmir does not have state status. We have 28 states, and we also have three union territories which have local elections: Delhi, Puducherry, and JNK. So we are supposed to have 31 CMs in total. Jammu and Kashmir right now does not have a CM because of the president's rule, but the other 32 have a chief minister. So do make a list along with which party they are from. So that will help you. Just make one particular list on that. Right, so Odisha CM is presently the longest serving chief minister among all the present. He's in fact had 20 consecutive years. His name is Mr. Naveen Patnaik from the Biju Janata Dal. Couple more points on January current affairs. Okay, very good point. This one we are having right now what is known as the Swachh Sarvekshan. The word Sarvekshan is a means being alert, being vigilant, but it also comes. It's also an interesting play on the word survey. So it's actually a survey. The English word survey and the Hindi word Sarvekshan, they basically are nicely interplayed here. The idea is, since Mr. Modi became the prime minister the first time, one of his major projects was Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, cleanliness of the country and sanitation. So the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was launched to that extent, and one of the I mean, of course, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is a scheme, but any scheme needs monitoring. How well it is doing depends on the way it is run. So you need to have monitoring agencies which look into this. So that's why we've now had five editions of Swachh Sarvekshan, and for the fourth consecutive year, Indore is India's cleanest city. Indore is in Madhya Pradesh, as you are aware. The first edition saw Mysuru in Karnataka being confirmed as the cleanest city, but since then it's been all Indore. For the last 4 years, Indore has been the. So this gives you another, shall I say, incentive to try for IIM Indore. You will be in the cleanest city in the country. So kudos to the authorities of this city. There has been an extensive network of, shall we put it, extensive network of waste management, solid waste management, waste collection that has been conducted really smoothly. And this is one of the reasons for the immense success of the city's cleanliness patterns. The world's largest cleanliness and sanitation survey, there were barely 70 urban units when it was first started, and now we have more than 4,000, making it the world's largest. There is another scheme. So this is Swachh Sarvekshan. Now I'm going to add one word. Can you see this word? Swachh Sarvekshan Grameen. So the word Grameen refers to rural areas, and yeah. So the word Grameen refers to rural areas. So basically, this is a study on the rural areas of the country, and Tamil Nadu has been declared as the cleanest state in the country, while Pedapalli in Telangana has been declared as the cleanest district. Right? So this is all the data that you need to know. In Swachh Sarvekshan, there is no rating of states. It is only for cities, right? When it comes to Swachh Sarvekshan Grameen, it is states that are voted for and districts that are voted for. There is nothing separately for individual villages, because that's very difficult to do. Because in India, each village leads to another village. Lots of villages are interconnected, so it's actually very difficult to name one village as superior or not so good than the neighboring one, because they're all part of a similar ecosystem, related ecosystem. You often have landowners in one village and the workers in another village next door, but they're all connected to the same ecosystem. So it's difficult to separate. That's the reason that there's no separate village category. There is a village in the northeast of the country declared the cleanest village in Asia, but that was declared by a different body. The government, please remember, they declares cleanest state and district in Grameen, and in the main one, it only declares the city. That's all the data you need to know. How is Swachh Bharat important for you? Swachh Bharat, actually, these government schemes are very important. All government schemes. So, I don't know if you can think of other government schemes such as Jan Dhan Yojana, Smart Cities Mission, Make in India, Digital India, Skill India, the Kisan Samman scheme, which is newly started, Mudra loans, and again, one of the most successful schemes in India has in recent times been the gas mission called the Ujwala mission. A number of women, especially, have seen their lives improve thanks to this, because they were earlier choking on coal-based energy, but now they are getting much cleaner this thing. And so since women do most of the cleaning, they were inhaling some of the flume, the smoke. So that has been a huge success story in India. We also have older schemes which were started by the previous governments, such as the The UPA government had started again Narega, which is considered one of the groundbreaking schemes, not just in India, for the entire developing world. More than 200 million people, almost 300 million people, were brought out of poverty thanks to National Rural Employment Guarantee Act or Guarantee Scheme, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural, because that's the full name, Manrega. So these schemes are very important. You could get a VAT, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, success or failure, and you need to write on that thing. So do you just write how clean everything is, how wonderful everything is? No, you need to give data. So these are some of the data points that you can use. You can also give personal viewpoints, what you have seen in your village, in your area. You may not stay in a village, but in your city, maybe you went to some school or college and you've seen the transformation in the last few years. Even if the country in reality, I don't know how much things have changed, but at least on the ground there is that consciousness to not dirty the place. And we've seen with COVID-19 how pollution and dirt does play a role in spread of diseases. So um, not a direct link, but yes, there is some sort of a link. So do go through these points. Government schemes very important. I'll share with you at a later date some website which will list all the important government schemes. Okay, so the 107th edition of the Indian Science Congress that is going to be held this year. It was held actually, so it was held in the University of Agricultural Sciences in Bengaluru. Every year we have the Indian Science Congress, ISC as it is known as. Next edition, which will be the 108th, will be held in Pune. Pune, not too far from Bengaluru, that will be held in the Symbiosis University next year. Last year it was held in Jalandhar. You've probably all heard of a very big university, lovely professional university, LPU. So it was held last year at LPU, not exactly in Jalandhar, actually nearby in the town of Phagwada, famous for the JCT Mills. There used to be a football club, an Indian football club, JCT Phagwada. That was my first introduction to the name Phagwada. But of course, later I came to know of this very big university. So this is held every year. Next year will be the 108th edition. So continuing on for more current affairs. Do type in your doubts, your questions, queries, if there are any, live on the chat window itself, because that will make things much more interesting. Otherwise, it's one-sided speaking. So that is, of course, less interesting for me. It'll be really good if you can chip in with your points as well. Okay, let's move to the next topic. Reef toxic sunscreens. What exactly are reef toxic sunscreens? So you all used sunscreens at some stage or the other. Even if you haven't used sunscreens, I'm sure you've all used shampoos, then body washes. Soaps which are liquid soaps. Body washes, or even soaps for that matter, the solid soaps you've used, hand wash, and I think hand washing has become all the more frequent right now in due to the COVID-19 scare. Now, during this entire period, you must understand that all these soaps and other toiletries, these cosmetics, they do have some form of what we can say chemicals. Now, are those chemicals, even the ones which advertise themselves to be the most organic, they cannot escape having no chemicals in it. There is always some chemical, there is always some chemical or the other in it. So, this chemical, the problem is when we are showering, when we are taking a bath, we call it bath in Indian, British English, we call it bath. Americans, you need to use the word shower. So after every shower, basically this seeps into the water level, right? Just think of this. You're taking a shampoo, there's some shampoo, it does get into the water cycle, the pipes, which eventually this goes into the rivers. Rivers is where all of it ends up. So they're ultimately chemicals. They might be treated, they might be good for your skin. I don't know. I'm not getting into that discussion, but ultimately they are chemicals. and when they seep into the water, they can cause different effects. Eutrophication is a common thing. I don't know if you're aware of this term, eutrophication. That's where there is so much of nutrient in the water. Nutrient, not in a good way, but yes, nutrients in water that fishes and other animals cannot thrive there. It leads to plants thriving. Fishes do not directly get affected, but because of these nutrients, these certain kinds of nutrients, more and more plants thrive in water. So if the entire water body is filled with plants, then rivers can't breathe, they can't move. You don't want too much of anything. That is eutrophication, right? So that is a huge problem. Now, in a country as large as India, maybe to a large extent we can get away. We have rivers which flow, and we have different industries to cater to. But Palau, where is Palau? I want you guys to write it down, even if you're not attending live. Think over this. If you've heard of this country, where exactly is Palau? Can somebody tell me which region? Just tell me which region is Palau in. Let me check for the responses if anybody has. Not really, not as yet. So Palau is basically in the South Pacific. You know, Pacific Ocean. There's South Pacific. South Pacific Ocean is nicknamed as the Ring of Fire. Why is it called the Ring of Fire? Please note down these points. It's called the Ring of Fire because of the presence of lots of underwater volcanoes. These volcanoes rise up. It's very regular to have volcanoes there in the South Pacific. The Pacific Ocean, by the way, is larger than all the landmass on Earth combined. 71% of Earth is water, and a large part of that is the Pacific Ocean. So only 29% is land. More than 29% is Pacific Ocean. So the southern part, lots of volcanoes, and these volcanoes over a period of time deposit a lot of debris on the surface of the water. And this debris over thousands, millions of years, it often solidifies and forms one single body. In fact, the maximum number of islands on Earth are volcanic islands. One of those, and many of those are in this South Pacific region. I'm sure you've heard of countries like Fiji, Tonga, you may have heard of Samoa, somebody may have heard of Nauru, Vanuatu, Kiribati. If anybody watches rugby is a sport where many of these countries are very good at. Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa especially very good at rugby. Papua New Guinea, they're good at rugby league, which is a similar sport. Um, so Palau is in that region. What are the two major industries for Palau? It's a tiny country with only a few tens of thousands of people. What are the two major industries? One is fishing. Obviously, they're right on the Pacific. They're surrounded by the Pacific everywhere you see. So they need fishing. And second important thing in Palau is tourism thrives. And why will you fly to Palau? It's far away on the extremes of the earth, not very well connected. It's remote. It's a very expensive, right? You're paying a lot of money. You want things to be completely pristine. You get cheaper beaches in Mauritius, um, in various parts of the or in Thailand. Good, but they can't be so pristine. They have mass tourism. Palau is a country which sells itself as a pristine tourism venture. So that is why tourism and fishing. So that is why this has been banned in this country. This decision was actually earlier taken in 2019. 2018 actually the decision was first taken, but it wasn't what should I put it, wasn't implemented. Implementation took a while, and implementation has just happened now. Okay, now there is something called a Ramsar site. Please write down about this if anybody is aware of what is a Ramsar site. Ramsar is a city or a town, you can say a tier 2 city in Iran, not as big as a Tehran or a Shiraz or a Qom, Isfahan. These are the biggest cities of Iran. This is not so big. But in Ramsar, there was once a convention known as the Ramsar Convention. Ramsar is next to a water body. Now, water body here does not mean the open ocean, not even a river, but basically a closed water body. So, Ramsar sites are a collection of closed water bodies anywhere in the world. Now, I don't know you're listening to the session from which part of the country, but for those who stay near Delhi, since I stay in Gurugram, there is this Suraj Kund lake. which is in Faridabad district. There's also a Badkhal Lake, also in Faridabad district. Along the way towards Rajasthan, North and West India, this current list is overall they are from different parts. So India has a total of 37 Ramsar wetlands. So this is about Ramsar. Yeah, usually in most classes which are more communicative, we speak and the students speak. So we do get a natural breaks. Here it's one-sided, so please do not mind if I occasionally take these breaks while talking. That's, I think, natural human. So this is a related thing, but not completely the same. Not completely related, but somewhat related. There is this body known as FSI, Forest Survey of India. Yeah, so there is this body called the FSI, or Forest Survey of India. As the name suggests, FSI is a government body to do a survey of all the forest land in India. So about, I mean, ideally, at least a third of the country should be forest land. In practical life, perhaps much less is there. Now, what exactly is a forest land? You need to understand any area which within a few square kilometers is covered by trees is designated a forest. So forest does not mean it's a national park or a wildlife sanctuary. National park is on top. In a national park, no economic activity is allowed. Tourism is allowed, but tourism in the buffer zone. Tourists are not causing any economic impact. Sorry, environmental impact. You're not even plucking leaves. You're not taking your pet dogs inside. Maximum one might end up irritating the staff. Show me a tiger, show me a tiger. That's what a lot of people do. They do bug the drivers and the naturalists. But apart from this, there's no direct impact. So tourism is okay. In fact, tourism is one of the best ways to preserve wildlife because you fight the lure of money which you get from poaching through the lure of money which is through tourism. So tourism is all right, but you other things are banned like timber logging. You can't carry your animals inside, domestic animals inside for grazing. You can't even pick up the fallen material because the fallen material merges with the ground and creates another ecosystem of its own. So fallen material should also not be extracted. In a wildlife sanctuary, that's the second highest level. You have greater independence, more amount of activity is allowed, but again, not so much. And then you have further, you also have biosphere reserves. You've got tiger reserves where the tiger protection of the tiger is the utmost important thing. You even have marine reserves where waters are protected. Like off the coast of India, you have off the coast of mainland India, but it's still under India's territory in water territory. That's we have the Gulf of Mannar, which is between Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka. So there, a certain part is protected. So no fishing activity, no commercial shipping there, right? But as I said, this is a small percentage. Just because you have trees, it's a forest. Now, whether it's all national park, not really. Percentage of protected forests is much less than the overall percentage of forests. So just have a look at this point. As per this report by the FSI, total forest and tree cover of the country is 24.56% of the total geographical areas. That's quite high. That's not bad at all, considering we always hear reports of deforestation and um, climate change, environmental degradation. It's not bad having one fourth. And this is a figure we have been reading for many years. But please understand, a lot of this forest is vulnerable. It is not completely protected. Only about 6% is protected forest. And that is a problem area. Protected forests are the national parks. We'll make a list of the national parks someday. National parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. Right? Okay. Okay, very important point. In fact, I would want you guys to mark a star next to this one. If you're writing somewhere, please make a note in your notebook. If you can mark a star, that'll be great. Just wanted to check on my volume, which I'll keep doing from time to time, the audio. Okay, so there is this body. Please note down the name: Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI, which is in short. So SIPRI creates these lists annually of SIPRI creates these annual lists of arms production, arms and ammunition production all over the world. USA is the world's largest arms producer as per the list this year. Lockheed Martin, and again a company from USA, although they do have a very important branch in the United Kingdom across the Atlantic, but it is the largest producing company. So USA is the world's largest producing country. Lockheed Martin is the world's largest producing company. Saudi Arabia is the largest importer. Can somebody tell me what is the significance of arms and ammunition right now in Saudi Arabia? Why are they importing? Are they engaged in some war? Let me give you 2 minutes. Let's see if you can answer this question. Uh, is Saudi Arabia engaged in some kind of a war right now? Let's see if you guys can answer this. Nobody? I'm waiting for your answers. Okay, even if you're not live, please note it down somewhere. So Saudi Arabia is actually fighting a war with its neighboring, I must add, impoverished neighbor, Yemen. So basically, if you look at that Gulf region, there are six countries which have oil or they are beneficiaries of oil. Bahrain, for example, does not have oil, but it's a very small country, benefits from tourism from the oil rich countries. So six countries are very rich, they have oil or they benefit from oil. One country culturally very similar to the others, but they do not have oil, and that is why that country is actually one of Asia's poorest. It has the third lowest per capita income in Asia, after North Korea and Afghanistan. It is third from bottom, or maybe second from bottom. I think Afghanistan has leapfrogged above. That's how low Yemen is. I hope you've heard of this country. Have you heard of this country, Yemen? Yemen, a former British colony. Its capital is Aden. Aden was one of the largest ports in the world at one stage. So Saudi has been fighting a war against Yemen for several years. I will take another class where I'll discuss some of the major global conflicts right now. But if I can quickly run through this, Saudi, within Islam there are different sects. So you have the Sunnis and the Shias, who are the two most powerful, the most numerous in numbers. Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam and the birthplace of Sunni Islam. In fact, they follow a certain very strict model of Sunni Islam known as the Wahhabi form. There are reports, there are signs that under the present heir to the throne, Mohammed bin Salman, things are liberalizing a bit, but again, it's early days, too early to say. Um, Yemen, on the other hand, has although it is also a Sunni majority country, but it has a significant Shia population. Which is the world's largest Shia country? That's Iran. Another oil-rich country, another powerful country with a powerful, army. Iran, apparently, as per the views held by Saudi Arabia, Iran is helping the Houthis, who are the rebels in Yemen, who have taken control of large parts of Yemen. As I said, Houthis. I guess Aden may not be the capital anymore. I think Sana'a is the capital, but Aden is again a very large city. Sana'a, Sana. That's probably the capital right now. Anyway, I'll have to just check that out sometime. So Iran apparently is supporting and funding the Houthis, who took control of the country. Then Saudi waged a war against them. Today, about 80% of Yemen is living in really squalid conditions thanks to this war. So Saudi, the world's largest importer. Any current affairs that you read, it is important for you to understand where India stands on that. So, for example, now we are talking of this. Now we'll go to India's position there. India is actually the fourth largest importer. As you are aware, India does have defense threats all around. Pakistan has long been a nemesis, an irritant, I should say. China again has long been, but never really engaged in war since 62. Now we did have some clashes, tragically. Even Nepal is agitating at times. We've had issues in the past with Sri Lanka, with Bangladesh. So yes, India is actually the fourth largest importer and the 10th largest producer. We do import quite a bit of stuff from France, Russia, USA, UK, Israel. These are the countries from where we import quite a bit of this thing. USA is the world's largest producer and the world's largest exporter. So as many wars are there, as many local conflicts are there worldwide, it's good for the United States and its big MNC companies like Lockheed Martin. Okay, so we are done with the CIPRI news. Now something else. So as I said, please don't be confused. I'll be constantly giving you different news, but that's the beauty of current affairs. It's one after another, one stream after another. Okay, so the Netherlands. Have you heard of this country? The Netherlands. It's in the northwest of Europe. There are three countries: Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, together known as the Low Countries. Why are they called Low Countries? It's because their average altitude is below sea level. That's right, they are below sea level, but they've protected the country over thousands of years using a complex system of dams and dikes. Netherlands, in their language, which is Dutch, actually means low land. Nether, even in English, we say netherland, nether as in below the earth. So zenith is top, nether is the bottom, below ground level is nether. So in the Dutch language, Netherlands means bottom. That's why we write the country as the Netherlands. Now, Netherlands has long been represented on international sports events and a lot of other events by the name Holland. Holland is actually not another name for Netherlands. It's actually the dominant part within the Netherlands. It's a very small country anyway, roughly the size of Haryana. But Holland is a particularly dominant area. There's a province called North Holland and there's one called South Holland. Apart from which you have several other provinces like Zealand, named on which New Zealand was named because there was a Danish explorer. Denmark was then under Dutch rule, who discovered that island, so he called it New Zealand, because Zealand is, part of no, Zealand is probably part of Denmark. Then it was part of the Dutch. But anyway, there are different provinces, so they obviously did not like this term. Holland has long been known for its football team and the orange jersey they wear. Not just in football, but in every sport, hockey, they have a very good team. So it's a typical orange colored jersey, which is what they wear. But now, no more Holland, please. It's only the Netherlands. They have a massive rivalry with Germany in football. The Dutch were struggling for a few years, didn't qualify for the last two majors, but now they are doing extremely well. Once again, thanks to emergence of new talent. I don't know if you've heard of these names: Frankie De Jong and Donny van de Beek and Matthias de Ligt, Jesper Silas, and some good new players have emerged. Right, let's go to the next topic. So this class is till 3:30. I could end it a little bit before that or extend it a bit more. Just depends on how well you guys are engaged. Right. There is this tribal woman from Telangana. Telangana is India's youngest state. 2015, it was separated from Andhra Pradesh. Speaks the same language as Andhra, Telugu. So Malavat Purna, that's her name. She's the first and youngest tribal woman in the world who set foot on the six tallest mountain peaks across the continents. She's the youngest to scale Everest twice. So this is your homework. Please find out which are the tallest mountain peaks on every continent. Yes. Uh, let's start with Asia. Obviously, it will be Everest in Nepal because Everest is the tallest on Earth. So obviously, it will be tallest in Asia. North America. Can somebody tell me North America? Highest peak of North America. I'll give you some time. Write it down on a piece of paper. North, South America, Africa, Europe, Australia, and Antarctica. Again, Australia and Antarctica, I understand they'll be difficult, but just see if you can get the other part correct. The other continents, the proper continents, if I may use the term. Okay. I hope you got enough time to think over it. Okay. Highest mountain peak in North America is McKinley. Mount McKinley is in Alaska. McKinley is also now known as Denali. Denali. It was called McKinley because McKinley, of course, was a white man, but the local tribals of Alaska, um, they have often known as the Eskimos. I think they have some other Inuits. That's the name they have for themselves. They have they're not happy with the McKinley name because they were the original settlers there, so they have named it Denali. That's in Alaska. In South America's tallest peak is Aconcagua, Aconcagua. That's in the country Argentina, famous for Lionel Messi. And it's part of the Andes Mountains. Africa's highest peak is Mount Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is mainly in Tanzania, although a part also protrudes into Kenya. Just like Kanchenjunga, partly in Sikkim, partly in Nepal. Similarly, primarily in Tanzania, but also partly protruding to Kenya. That is Mount Kilimanjaro. And the amazing thing about Kilimanjaro is that it is right on the equator. So it is on the equator. The equator passes through Kilimanjaro, yet the Kilimanjaro remains snow clad the whole year. Why is that? It's because of the altitude, more than 6,000 meters above sea level. Europe, the highest mountain peak is Mount Elbrus, which is in the Caucasus Mountains, south of Russia. It's in the country Georgia. I don't know if you've heard of the country Georgia. There's a state in USA called Georgia, which has the city of Atlanta. Beautiful city of Atlanta. Love that city. But in Europe, there is a country called Georgia. Stalin, you've all heard of Stalin, was actually from Georgia. Australia's highest peak is Kosciuszko, named after a Polish explorer. Very difficult name, I agree. Antarctica's highest is Mount Vinson. These are the six, are the highest for all the continents. Okay. As I was discussing some time back, there was the CAA last year. I think in the previous session I discussed. So there was the Citizenship Amendment Act, which ran into some sort of protest from various people in India. Kerala was actually the first state in India which passed a resolution demanding scrapping of the CAA. Several other states have also joined in with some sort of protest against the same. So Article 131 has been invoked for this. Article 131 is where a state government can challenge the decision of the central government or the Supreme Court. This is what Kerala has done. Okay, now some news on space exploration. ISRO has set up a regional academic center for space. This has been set up at Surathkal. There is actually an IIT, I think, in Surathkal, if I'm not wrong, one of the new IITs. It's in the state of Karnataka. ISRO's main office, where is the main office? The headquarters are in Bengaluru. The chairperson has been a lot in the news is K. Sivan. K. Sivan had this iconic image of being hugged by the Prime Minister after the heartbreaking story of Chandrayaan 2, where just a few miles away from the moon, it broke down. So he was, of course, consoled to an extent by the Prime Minister. But of course, he would know, I mean, years of hard work probably goes into those few moments. So that was something tragic for the entire nation. But anyway, so he's the chairperson of ISRO, and Bengaluru is the main headquarters. The main launch pad is in Sri Harikota. You may have heard of Sri Harikota. It's on the Bay of Bengal, off the coast of um, is it Andhra or Odisha? Yeah, off the coast of Andhra Pradesh. That's the main launch pad. But now a regional academic center has been set up within the IIT, within the institute for further studies, further research on the same. And this new copper bottle, which I really like, um, good for the environment in a way. I mean, it does not, so it's not plastic, so it's reusable. Next topic, let's move into okay, so Odisha government, I was talking about Naveen Patnaik some time back. He's the longest serving chief minister among those serving right now. If he completes this term, which I mean, he should, unless there is some health emergency, he's got a massive majority. So definitely he's safe till his time, and that's on the electoral side. Then he'll be the longest serving CM ever. Now, Odisha government has launched a new portal on the website called e-Gazette. It's part of, as I said, the five T's, where technology is being used to rapidly upgrade the capabilities. This is before COVID, please understand. So Odisha has been one state which, of course, now because of COVID, lots of governments are trying to make life easier, make things more online centric. But this was a thing done in January itself. The idea was to attract, was to reduce the pressure on the government offices and ease of doing business from home itself. You can access this and fill your forms. So also a lot of information you get on government projects and tenders. I think you know the word tender. For every government project, tenders are brought out, and that is where. So my classes, please don't see them as only fact churning classes. Please see them as discussive, understand the overall context and the overall picture. They could be a bit slow because my idea is not to give you facts, facts, and facts. If I had to just give you facts, I would just give you a PDF, study this, read this, mug it up. But that's not how GK is done. You can only mug up to a certain point. If you see, I mean, there are so many jokes about Indian students and Indian style of study. People mug up, they get 99 out of 100. 2 months later, they've forgotten everything. I don't want that. We want discussions. The more discussions you have, now that you have read this e-gazette portal under the concept of, the chief minister, there'll be tags in your mind. The more discussions we have, things will somehow hit on your mind somewhere or the other. So that's the idea. Please don't take my classes fact churning more than facts and facts, but I'll be having slow discussions on every topic. Okay, so there was this topic on the longest serving chief minister, as I said. I'll just read this point, all of you, please. The longest serving for 34 consecutive years they were in power. Right now they're in power in Kerala. The Congress and CPIM, they have been in rotation in power for quite a while. Right? Okay. So let's do the next topic. Okay, sticking to politics, somebody passed away in January. Maharaja Kamal Singh passed away. He was the last surviving member of the first ever Lok Sabha, which is 1952, the first ever parliament when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister of India, first elected Prime Minister of India. That's when he was in the parliament. So 1952, he actually fought from the Shahabad seat in Bihar. Shahabad is now Ara. He was actually a Maharaja from that region, so that sort of helped. Ara is now Shahabad is called Ara. And 1957, he won from the seat at Buxar. Buxar, of course, people might remember Buxar for being the site of the Battle of Buxar and the Treaty of Buxar, which was a few years after the battle, the iconic Battle of Plassey. So he passed away. You can make a list of important obituaries in the year as well. Okay, Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani, he's from the BJP. Mr. Modi, of course, was the CM till 2014. For 12 years, he had been CM. But of course, he had to step down when he became the Prime Minister. And there was Anandiben Patel for a while who replaced him. And then, of course, Vijay Rupani has been CM. This term, he started, of course, from day one itself, 2017. Unveiled the second tallest statue of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. You know, the largest Vallabhbhai Patel statue is actually the largest statue in the world for anybody. That is the Statue of Unity, which is in the Narmada district of Gujarat, the world's tallest building. India is a proud nation possessing that. This is the second tallest statue of. Okay, now days and dates can also be important. You could get a match the following. One side dates are given, the other side days are given. You match them. You often get themes as well. This year, for this, there was no particular theme, but World Braille Day celebrated or commemorated on 4th of January. I don't know if you're aware of the significance of Braille, but Braille is a script to help the visually challenged people. Checking out for comments. Fair enough. No such queries. So World Braille Day celebrated every year on 4th January. It's the birthday of Louis Braille. Louis Braille was himself visually challenged, blind as we can say, and he developed this script to help everyone who's visually challenged. Braille script is now used a lot in our country. In fact, we have certain national parks, certain museums where instructions are also also a metro network. I think in Kochi, where a lot of the instructions are in Braille as well, so that even they do not have any difficulties in traveling, in commuting, or in exploration. Okay, Maharashtra government has launched a cyber safe women campaign. Mumbai, of course, being such a big city, such a massive city, does unfortunately occasionally see the cases where women are harmed, rape cases. They do occur, of course. So part of this, the Chief Minister, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, from the Shiv Sena, launched this movement, Cyber Safe Women. It is on the birth anniversary of social reformer Savitribai Phule. So, Savitribai Phule was a social reformer who worked for the rights of Dalits, the rights of the lower caste people, and also for various other oppressed sections of society, for women as well. And that is why on her birth anniversary, this was named. Right. Let's move to the next point. Okay, Telangana, as I said, the youngest state in the country, they have declared 2020 as the year of artificial intelligence. Please remember, this is January current affairs, so this is pre-COVID 19. COVID had just started in China as yet. I mean, there were some stray cases in other parts of the world, in Iran, in Italy, even in India. I believe by end of January there may have been a case or two, but it wasn't as yet a pandemic, wasn't declared by the WHO. So that is why in 2020, as you can see, now we are doing increasing work from home. Even exams are being conducted using an AI based model. So this was done even before that. So that's an interesting step taken by the state government. It was launched by KT Ramarao, who's actually the IT minister of the Telangana government. He's also the son of the present chief minister, K. Rao. Okay, sticking with ISRO, as I told you, they have a launch pad in Sri Harikota of Andhra Pradesh. They'll be launching a second one off the coast of Tamil Nadu on Thuttukudi district, as I said, in Tamil Nadu, again on the Bay of Bengal. There's a reason. Can you think of the reason why are all the launch pads on the Bay of Bengal, not on the Arabian Sea? I mean, not just for this, but also for weapons you have in Odisha on the Bay of Bengal, not on the Arabian Sea. If you Okay, I'll just give you some time. Think over this. Why do you have most of these launch pads, whether it is space, whether it is missiles, why all on the Bay of Bengal and not on the Arabian Sea side? Okay, I hope you've thought over this. So on the Bay of Bengal side, if you see, our eastern side is much safer in terms of international waters. On the western side, Pakistan is nearby. That is one big concern. Some stray things here and there, things could lead to a problem. Eastern side that way is much more peaceful. The waters are also calmer in a way on the east. I mean, not really that calm, but a little bit further off, it is calmer. The deep in the ocean. Also on the western side, we have the menace of piracy. Somali pirates, they are a big threat in many parts. That problem is less on the east. So it's less rocky as well. The eastern side is much less rocky, so that's why a lot of this is done on the eastern side. But the biggest thing is the geopolitical thing. No major threats per se. Again, before COVID 19, the World Health Organization had already designated 2020 as the year of the nurse and midwife. This is in honor of the 200th birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale. I don't know if you've heard of Florence Nightingale. She's considered the mother of modern day nursing. There was this war known as the Crimean War. I don't know if you've heard of it. Sometime in the 1860s, where Turkey was invaded by Russia, and Turkey sought help from Britain and France. This is a post-Napoleonic France. So France was now fairly friendly with Britain, which it wasn't the case before while till Napoleon was alive. So Britain, France, and Turkey was one side. Russia was on the other side. Britain and France ended up winning. Turkey retained its independence. But more than winning and losing, the biggest hallmark of that war was mindless killing. This is what the First World War also brought in. The Second World War was in a way different. I mean, at least there was some ebb and flow progress, even though many more people died. The First World War would constantly see one side killing and the other side killing, and no real progress being made. Same happened in the Crimean War, during the Crimean War, and that has led to thousands of, maybe tens of thousands of people getting injured very badly. And so nursing became such a critical part of it, and that's when Florence Nightingale came to the picture. And that's when the World Red Cross was formed. The World Red Cross was formed immediately around the time of the Crimean War, and that's when the Geneva Convention was formed against the torture of war criminals, war prisoners. So very critical war, actually, the Crimean War. And Florence Nightingale's contribution is massive for the post-war peace. So this year dedicated to nurses and midwives. This is the theme for this year. Nurse, we all know they are working tirelessly nowadays thanks to COVID-19. Who are midwives? I don't know if you're aware of this term. In urban areas, a lot of the birth is taken care of in hospitals. In a lot of rural areas and remote areas, you have professionally trained. Sometimes they're not so trained, but they improvise with experience. Midwives are women who help during the delivery process. So this is a traditional area, but now many are getting trained in modern medicine, and they need greater training so that things are sanitized and well taken care of. And that's what the WHO has been working on with local governments, right? Okay, so now the next topic, Prince William. I think you've all heard of him. He is the second heir to the throne after Prince Charles. Queen Elizabeth has been queen for more than 60 years now. There are lots of jokes on how Prince Charles just keeps being the heir but just cannot be the king. So Prince Charles is the father of Prince William. Prince Charles, and of course Lady Diana. She passed away, one of the most well-known public figures in the last couple of decades. He's her son. So he announced this new award known as the prestigious Environment Prize in History. It is a prestigious environment prize. It's also the most lucrative in terms of money. It's called the Earthshot Prize, and this is for tackling climate change. It is the most lucrative, as I said, and this is the amount of money. So every year, five winners will be chosen, and they'll be hand this who is the winner. That will be decided by the Royal Foundation of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. That's the title held by Prince William. He is the Duke of Cambridge. So there they have a royal foundation which will decide this. Right now, completely different topic. We move to from the British royal family. We move to banking. Um, can somebody tell me who's the governor of the RBI before we progress ahead? If somebody can tell me the governor of the RBI. Okay, so Shaktikanta Das, I hope you got his name. He's the governor of the RBI. There's this new bank which has got license. A lot of there is this thing going on. More and more banks being given the banking license. So it's called Shivalik Mercantile Cooperative Bank Limited. It's the first urban cooperative bank that has been granted in principle permission to convert into a small finance bank by the RBI. All right, that's the thing. In principle, permission to convert into a small finance bank. You need, as I think you are all aware, monetary policy in India handled by the RBI. So RBI takes care of uh, all this, all the licensing for the banks. Okay, next topic, again completely different. The world's largest floating wind turbine has been installed off the coast of, it should be a single F, of Portugal. Portugal, beautiful country on the Iberian Peninsula, of course. Now, what is the floating wind turbine? Wind turbines, I think you can understand, they run based on wind power. They also generate wind-based electricity. Now, when they are stationary at some point, the country Netherlands we were talking of, famous for windmills. Now, when you have a stationary windmill, it will move only in a certain direction where the wind is moving at that time. But when if it's and there could be times when it does not move in the right direction, so there could be a stoppage. That's one of the challenges of unconventional energy, is that during certain lull periods of the wind, you do not get the right wind energy. On the other hand, if we look at floating turbine, of what is a floating wind turbine? This Okay, I don't know how I can show this without an image, but please, I would tell you guys, look at a Google image. Go to Google, see the image. So basically, it is attached to the jetty on the mainland, but then it floats on its own. The advantage of this is whichever direction the wind is moving, it flows that way. So it can actually generate wind the whole time, and it stays near the mainland, but it is quite often on the water, and it floats. So you can actually get access to 24 hours of electricity because it flows in the direction the wind is moving, because it is floating, it is not permanent at one area, it is lightweight, right? But through a jetty it is connected to the mainland. Okay, there's a bilateral naval exercise. This is again a very important topic. I didn't mention the countries, my mistake. Please add that in your notes. It is between India and Oman. My mistake. Please make that. Just add that. It's not a mistake. Just could not be added. So this is between India and Oman. Oman, I don't know if you're aware. It's there in the Middle East. It is one of the. It is one of the six rich GCC countries. It is probably the least of those six in terms of per capita income. It's quite a balanced country, unlike Kuwait and Qatar and UAE, which are extremely rich, somewhat, I mean, with a large foreign population. Native population is quite low. Oman does have a large native population. um, Very rich country. Muscat is the capital. So India and Oman engaged in a bilateral naval exercise in Goa. What is a bilateral naval exercise? This is something which every month you will be doing something or the other. So every month, India, of course, now things are different because of COVID, because of the lockdowns, but the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, it engages in constant exercises with other countries' uh, armed forces. This is basically, the idea is that we learn from them, they learn something from us, and when there's a real war, we can both collaborate together. Right? It fosters good relations between the two. You also get a sense of competition, where you show your skills to another country's force. Oman for India is a strategic partner. Why? Because as I said, we have a lot of trade with the Middle East, especially the state of Kerala has historically had a lot of trade routes, trade links with the Middle East. Uh, I mentioned about 5-10 minutes back the threat from Somali pirates. And Somali pirates, they do a lot of pillaging, piracy on the Arabian Sea, and that leads to millions of dollars, perhaps hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars being lost in global trade. So Oman, because of its location, is one of the firm allies of India in fighting the threat of naval piracy. Not just from Somalia, but then there could be from other areas as well. Somalia, why? Because the entire country is organized in a way that piracy is one of the. It's a very poor country, so this is actually one of the ways in which Somalia does its organizes its business from that lucrative Arabian Sea, Gulf of Oman route. Right? Oman is a beautiful country. You should all visit Muscat, the capital city. It's modern, but not ultra modern like Dubai. It does have its traditional culture as well. So very good combination of the old and the new. Right? They also have a place called Salala, which is a paradise for bird lovers. There's a bird sanctuary every year during winters. You get migratory birds from the colder countries who love the oasis like environment. So in December, January, there'll be great time. I don't know this year how things will work out, but generally great time to visit Salala. Okay, again, totally different topic. Now we get into space science again. But unlike ISRO, we were talking of ISRO and how ISRO works for space science. Of course, this is for the junior level. This is for youngsters to promote the idea of space technology and space research among children, among school students specifically. So there is the center. I don't know if you've heard of him, Vikram Sarabhai, often considered the father of space science in India. So one of the top scientists in Indian history. So Vikram Sarabhai, there is an institute, Vikram Sarabhai Children Innovation Center. It has been developed in Gujarat by the government. So this is to identify, nurture, and promote children's innovation in the state towards space science. Now, one magazine you should all keep an eye out as business students, as potential future business students, is Forbes magazine. Forbes is pretty much considered an authority when it comes to business writing internationally. In India, we have other magazines. We have Business Today, Business India, Business World, Outlook Business. These are, of course, among the big ones. Outlook Business, my personal favorite in India. But globally, you did have these places, these Forbes is considered the leader. Forbes' biggest rival is Fortune magazine, and there's also Bloomberg Business Week. These are pretty much considered the big three: Forbes, Fortune, and Newsweek. Um, Forbes and Fortune, the bigger ones. They've also transitioned very well to the online space, pretty much dominating online space as well. So, Forbes magazine, whenever they bring out a list, that is a list you need to take very seriously. What is it they've brought out? So one Indian woman, Garima Arora, has been has found a place in Forbes India's prestigious list of 20 people to watch in the 2020s. So young people to watch out in the 2020s. She's the only Indian. Who is she? She's actually a chef. She owns this restaurant called Ga, which is in Bangkok. It's a fusion restaurant, a high-end Michelin starred restaurant. I don't know if you've heard of this term. There's actually a French tire company. If anybody watches Formula One, in Formula One, the two major tire suppliers, tires are such an important part of all the cars. One is Bridgestone, the other is Michelin. Michelin is a French company. Michelin also launches this guide for restaurants and restaurants in particular. So the more number of Michelin stars, that means that's a higher rated thing. So she's actually one of the youngest, probably the youngest female Michelin starred chef in the world. I'll need to check on that, but yes, definitely one of the youngest women who was starred by the Michelin stuff, the stars, the restaurant as well, highly rated. Right. As I said, I am also a food blogger, so we can always discuss on these matters. If you need recommendations on restaurants, on cuisines, on items, please feel free to write on those matters as well. Okay, so Spain is a country I had actually visited last year. Beautiful country. I visited the wonderful beaches near Malaga, the beautiful capital city of Madrid, Barcelona as well. And I actually visited the rural areas in Vigo, which is in the eastern part, western part. There's the province called Galicia, which is overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. So that's where we actually stayed in Airbnb. So got a very hands-on experience of the real country. Beautiful country. They did very badly, undoubtedly, in the COVID-19 situation. They were among the first countries to be hit. A large population died tragically. Now they are back pretty much. A lot of it has been controlled. Now, this country had its first confirmed the socialist leader Pedro Sanchez. It was a razor thin margin for another term. It's the first coalition government since the country returned to democracy in the 1970s. Before the 19 until 1975, the country was ruled by a dictator, Franco, Francesco Franco, whose side won the civil war. Spain had a civil war 1936 to 39. So the Franco side won in 1939. They took power, and Franco was dictator for 36 years. So after he left, Spain was once again converted into a democratic monarchy. They do have a king, but the king does not have legislative powers. The real powers are with the elected prime minister. So Pedro Sanchez is now the prime minister of Spain. The next question is very important. I would like all of you to mark a star in that question. It's, as I said, the questions which I ask you to write. Please take a note on them, because this is the kind of question. The next one, as I said, which could be really useful in a VAT or GD. So Japan has actually topped what is called the Henley Passport Index, which periodically measures the world's most travel-friendly passports. It released its first report of the new decade. India is ranked 84th, which is not very high but not very low, somewhere in the middle. It actually takes into account the number of countries where your passport can work for a visa on arrival, or visa-free travel, or even an e-visa, where your travel is so much easy. I don't know, somehow all this travel related ease sounds like a different era nowadays. So Japan tops that list. There are some countries which might have entry to more countries visa on arrival, but the number of days could be limited. So it's a complex equation where Japan has topped. India somewhere in the middle at 84th. Indians do have visa on arrival at several countries, but a lot of those countries are very far off from India, so it does not practically have much of an impact. But yes, a lot of some neighboring countries, yes, like Thailand is visa on arrival, Kenya, Tanzania, these are some, Hong Kong, Macau, these are some of the countries where it's realistically visa on arrival. And of course, Nepal and Bhutan are visa free. Yeah, as of now, let's see how things work out with Nepal. Bhutan has also put some restrictions, because Bhutan is a country very concerned about its environment, the peace within that country. Okay. Okay, so just like Forbes, I told you, is a highly respected magazine. Another very important magazine is The Economist. Economist is slightly different, more on economy rather than business. It's related, economy and business, they're related terms, but not exactly the same. It's a very old magazine from the 18th century in England. And they also have a research wing called Economist Intelligence Unit. So I'll be discussing a lot of these studies by EIU, and you will need to go through them. That's very good for quoting data. I'll show you how you can use. Just give me some time. So I had earlier discussed about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So on that note, if I say that you could get a topic on any economic indicator. So you can actually quote data. I keep saying VAT is not a creative writing study. VAT is about putting the right data at the right place and writing good English. So some data, I don't know how much this will be relevant, but generally speaking, any data by EIU, by Forbes, by Business Insider, Fortune can be quoted as relevant. Okay, so three Indian cities have been listed in the top 10 of the world's fastest growing cities, all three from Kerala: Kozhikode, Malappuram, and Kollam. Okay, Sri Amit Shah, who is the Home Minister of the country, was the BJP chief until few months back. Mr. JP Nadda succeeded him because now he's the Home Minister. So he inaugurated, as you know, part of the Home Ministry is to keep control within the domestic territory. External Affairs or Defense Ministry looks onto the outside, but the Home Ministry regulates all the paramilitary forces and the internal matters. Nowadays, cybercrime is a very big problem, so that is why he set up this. Under his leadership, this was set up, India Cybercrime Coordination Center, also known as 4C, I4C, because it's 4C's, Cyber Crime Coordination Center. So this was also a dedicated national cyber crime reporting portal. This has been dedicated to the nation. So any crimes you guys face anywhere, one can always report to this body. Serious crimes, they will be looked up by this body. I think this is my last slide of GK, after which I'll take you to the conclusion. And I had told you at the start of the class that let me go through this. I'll show you the Unacademy part once again. So I can actually quickly go back to that part. I hope everybody understood, because I quickly came up then. I hope everybody's got the idea about the subscription model. AD09, that's the subscription code. You get detailed reports and analysis here. Get your doubts cleared. Feel free to ask questions. I hope some questions are there in the YouTube slide now. I guess not many. No language barriers. There are some of our faculty, so you do get batches, specific batches for course completion. Again, some of the star faculty: Shashant Rathore, Rajkumar Jha. I showed you this slide with the number of faculty. These are also among the star ones: Aniket Agarwal, Udit Saini. You can actually enjoy classes from number of faculty, whoever, whatever suits you the most at that stage. So let me just go back to the GK part, the last slide, as I mentioned. Yeah. Okay, so next topic is, okay. So have you heard of the sport equestrian? Just have a look at this word equestrian. I don't know if you've heard. Equestrian is a horse-based sport, but it's not racing. It's more about show dancing, showing your skills with a horse. So European countries are very good at that. Historically, it's more dominated by Netherlands, Germany, UK, Britain, France, Italy, etc. It's Europe, Belgium. The European countries do very well. Western Europe, especially. Um, After a long time, in fact, he's the first ever Indian. Fawad Mirza became the first Indian to qualify for the this thing, for the Tokyo Olympics, not for the Tokyo Olympics, generally first ever in a Olympics, in first in 2 decades in the sport of equestrian. Now Tokyo Olympics, they got postponed by a year, thanks to COVID-19. Now it is actually having 5 sports added. So karate is being added for the first time, skateboarding, sport climbing, and surfing. If you see sports 2, 3, and 4, skateboarding historically associated as an extreme sport. Sport climbing similarly. What is sport climbing? It's actually climbing walls, but as a sport. That's why the term sport climbing is there. And surfing. These are all adventure sports, not typically sports. So basically, Olympics wants to be more youth oriented, so that a lot of youngsters, they feel that the sports in the Olympics, they're good to watch only because it's Olympics. But in normal time, we will probably not be watching equestrian. I love watching these sports, but then I'll be honest to admit, it's not that on a regular basis I'm following the best players in equestrian or um, mm, 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 um, fencing and triathlon. A lot of these sports, they are good for playing, but they're not really followed. That's why these sports have been added to be younger. Baseball and softball was already there. It was dropped after 2008. 2012 and 16, it was not included, but these two sports have been reintroduced in 2016, 2021 now. Baseball and softball is basically the same sport. The only difference is that baseball is for men, softball is for women. Rules are pretty similar, except that in softball, I think the pitching, bowling, you have bowling in cricket. In baseball, we call it pitching. So it's actually underarm, whereas in baseball, it's overarm. There are probably some differences in terms of the size of the pitch, the dimensions. I'm not sure, but it's by and large the same sport. Right. Okay. So Italy, sticking to sports, Italy has actually unveiled plans to. They've already started construction towards the world's largest skiing network in the Dolomites. Dolomites are the mountains in northern Italy, near the city of Turin. If you've heard of the city Turin, home to Juventus Football Club. So Italy is actually going to host the 2026 Winter Olympics. I believe Milan is the main center. Milan will be hosting the next Winter Olympics. And the next one is in China, 2022 in Beijing, but 2026 will be in Italy, in the Dolomite Mount. Dolomites are an extension of the Alps. I'm sure you've all heard of the Alps. So it is simply an extension of the All right, I'm done with the content of this class. I really hope you guys enjoyed the session. This was the first of our current affairs sessions. I'll be doing more of these month-wise sessions. So today was the first part of January. Every month there'll be three sessions. There'll be one more for January and one more. So January current affairs one, two, and three, because each month is long. A lot of things happen. Everything may not be relevant for you. My idea is to give you the facts, discuss with you the broad things. You guys listen to it comfortably, and then you inculcate whatever you can, however much you can. I'm okay with that. And I keep saying whatever is important. I do keep mentioning specifically important. Take Olympics, definitely important. Would have been had it been held this year. Now it's postponed, so who knows how things will be now. Um, it's a little difficult right now to say what is or not important because of the lockdowns and pandemic. We don't know when what will become normal. So we are in a new normal where we don't know what is normal, right? That's something we have to understand. Anyway, wonderful interacting with you guys. This is the code. I'm going to leave about 5-10 minutes of this class open if there are any doubts. So I'm keeping the session open on YouTube to see if you guys can come up with any questions. Right, so no need to wait. Like, share, and subscribe. This is the code I've mentioned for you guys. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm keeping the session open for a while for you guys to ask questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, thanks. Let's just wait. Let me just see if there are any questions. I guess there aren't any new questions. Fair enough. Thank you so much, guys. Was wonderful interacting with you. So see you soon. I'll continue with these sessions tomorrow. I believe I've got the second part of January current affairs. I'll also start tomorrow a new series, which is daily newspaper reading. So you don't actually have to. It'll be great if you can read, but even if you can't read the newspaper fully, I will be tracking keeping a track of important events. So I'll bring out the paper. It won't be much of a PPT, but I'll have the newspaper and I'll show you the different parts in that. And I'll discuss the broader matters from every news item. So you're not reading the newspaper in isolation then. It's actually each news item with a broader this thing, because I'll be able to add much bigger points to every news item. right? Wonderful interacting with you guys. Thank you so much. See you all very soon.